Crimson Crossover Network. This is The Tide Machine with Charles Branch and Michael Southern. We're in. After a lackluster performance in the SEC championship game and having to sweat out making the college football playoff, Alabama does return to the college football playoff, this time for the first time in the 12-team format, and will be the 9 seed playing Oklahoma in Norman this Friday. I'm Charles Branch with Michael Southern, and this is the Tide Machine. Michael, it was not a great game, but we are in the college football playoff. And if you had told us that after week 1, I think people would have looked at you crazy. So again, it may not have ended the way we wanted to in the SEC championship game, but it is something to say that this team is still playing for a national championship this season.
Yeah, I think, like you said, at the beginning of the year, if you would have said, hey, Alabama's going to make the 12-team playoff, I think most people would have taken that and been happy. I think most people had in their mind that Alabama more than likely to get in the 12-team playoff would have been 10-2, not 10-3. But Alabama had the added on bonus of actually being considered what would be the number 1 seed for the SEC championship game. So they got to play the extra game. All in all, fine. Thought the committee. Credit to them for sticking to their guns on this one. The only, I would say, I won't call it a gripe. The only thing I would say that I wish the committee would have done, there was no need to push Alabama as far as they did after they had lost. And if you're going to use the justification they did to then flip them back up, I mean, you could have just left them higher to begin with and kept that separation and never put this in doubt. I don't know. I mean, it's good built-in TV ratings, I suppose, and it adds drama and it makes people tune into your show when you take the first 25 minutes to talk about could they get in, why should they get in, and you waste all that time. So at the end of the day, I guess it's to drive drama, ratings. But, the only show that really matters is the last show. And, when it was all said and done, Alabama made it in, and that's exactly where you want to be.
Absolutely. And I can understand the argument or the frustration from some people that when you look at conference championship weekend, Alabama lost, doesn't move, BYU loses, they move back 1, which brings Miami up really 2 spots and getting into the college football playoff over Notre Dame. But if you just look at the Alabama perspective and what conference championships are supposed to mean, it should not be a disqualifier to get in the college football playoff if you are already in the college football playoff and you're not being bumped by an automatic qualifier like what happened last year. Clemson won the ACC championship, and had Clemson not won the ACC championship, we would have been in, and SMU, of course, would have been in as the ACC champion. So I think it's really hard when you're judging everybody, or supposed to be judging everybody off a 12-game season, and then you have this 13th game in the championship, and that's supposed to hold that much weight as far as a team not making it. It really should be about getting in to the college football playoff if you're not already in there, like it was for Duke and Virginia, like it was for James Madison and Tulane to have that opportunity to get in the college football playoff. I know there was a lot of pundits and unfortunately some former Alabama players who didn't think that Alabama should have gotten in to this college football playoff, but I don't see what argument you can make, especially if you're going to start looking at the wins that Alabama had this year. And it's not just the win against Georgia that everybody wants to talk about. It is the win at home against Vanderbilt. It's the win against Missouri that was undefeated with their starting quarterback and coming off of a bye week in that game. It's the win against Tennessee. I even throw the win against LSU. I understand Brian Kelly had just been fired, but LSU at one time was considered the number 3 team in the country. There's still a lot of talent there. And oh, by the way, they almost beat Oklahoma on the last day of the regular season and would have knocked them out. So I know there's a lot of talking heads out there that don't want to see Alabama in. They want some other people into the party. But there's no doubt this team deserved their opportunity and earned their opportunity to get into this year's college football playoff.
Well, at the end of the day, and look, this is what the national media, they don't want to admit this, but true football fans know this. I'm sorry, but all conferences and all conference games are not the same. They are not on the same level, and you can't treat them objectively. It is subjective. I'm sorry. There is a different way or different value that you need to apply to the strength of the conference and what the impact of a championship game really means. Let's be honest. The SEC championship game is more impactful right now than the ACC championship game or the Big 12 championship game. Yes, BYU went to the championship game, lost, didn't get invited. Well, they lost twice to the actual champion of the league. In Alabama's case, they split. So Alabama and Georgia went 1-1. Look, as we talked about, national media, they know what moves the needle. You throw Alabama's name in there on any topic, people listen. There's a reason why Alabama's one of the top draws on television. Alabama's in the perfect position you want to be as far as a program for attention in the sense that people either love Alabama or they hate Alabama. And that's exactly where you want to be. You don't want to be indifferent because then people don't even talk about you or think about you. So I'm perfectly fine with the hate watchers, the national media basically being haters saying Alabama shouldn't be in there. I am a little I was a little thrown off by some of the former players. I think know which one we're talking about. That's saying that Kalen DeBoer might be playing for or should be playing for his job in this game against Oklahoma. That's totally false. I don't buy that. That's a bad take. That's something you'd read on tighter insider message board. I would expect more from an analyst. Your job is to be a little more critical thinking, a little more analytical, and not average Joe fan gut reaction. So that to me was just a terrible take, not true. I don't buy it for 1 second.
Yeah, is this the fourth or fifth game of this season that Kalen DeBoer is coaching for his job, and yet Alabama's in the college football playoff, and he has a $70 million buyout, and he just signed a top five recruiting class, and they seem to really have things working as it goes into recruiting in NIL. And oh, by the way, as it stands right now, you still have your staff pretty much together. Of course, Jamarcus Shepard got the Oregon State job, and there may be some attrition there. But all these coordinators from all these college football playoff contenders are getting hired left and right for head coaching jobs. And you still got Ryan Grubb and Kane Womack right in the Malmore Athletics Facility 24/7 working on game plans for Alabama and not having to manage another team right now. So this ship is continuing in the right direction. And I don't buy it that Kalen DeBoer is coaching for his job with what he's put together this year and again, the financial ramifications of what it would mean to let go somebody like Caitlin DeBoer.
Well, I've never heard of a coach playing for his job more often in one season, yet also be named in the coaching search for some of the biggest programs in the country. So, you need to pick which side you want to be on here because it doesn't make sense.
Well, as we turn our attentions to Oklahoma, we did talk a lot about that Alabama-Oklahoma series when they came to Tuscaloosa. The benefit of this game maybe is that it is a postseason game, even though it's a home first round game in Norman. Alabama's been pretty successful against Oklahoma in the postseasons. In fact, the two wins Alabama has against Oklahoma were in the postseason. And the one most recently was the 2019 Orange Bowl that was also part of the college football playoff when number one seed Alabama went against number four seed and Heisman Trophy winner Kyler Murray and the Oklahoma Sooners. That was, you had Jalen Hurts, you had Mac Jones, of course, you had Tua, you had the rideouts, you had a pretty stacked Alabama team as far as talent, top to bottom, offense and defense. What do you remember as far as that Orange Bowl in 2019 as we prepared to take Oklahoma and try to go back to back as far as national champions that year?
Yeah, the biggest thing you remember is one, Alabama came out on fire, jumped out, I think went up 28-0. And don't forget, it was also Josh Jacobs just increasing his stock value for the NFL draft, just running over people. So Alabama came out, seemed pretty focused on a mission. Credit to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, he actually played a really good game, especially in the second half. So he was a little difficult, elusive, the type quarterback that usually drives the Nick Saban defense crazy. And credit them, they didn't get completely blown out after it looked like that they would. But again, clearly Alabama was the better team. They showed they were a better team. Similar circumstance, I think, this year. We all know deep down Alabama truly is the more better team on both sides. Well, maybe not both sides of the ball. Oklahoma's defense, I think, probably is a little bit better, but Alabama's far better on offense, and they need to show that. So need the same things coming up for this Friday night that you saw in that Orange Bowl. I was very in that Orange Bowl. I know people said, well, Tua needs to show that he deserved the Heisman. He had a good game. They all played a good game. Don't know if he actually showed that he deserved the Heisman. I thought, he really could have gotten the Heisman. The biggest detriment to him was, he came out of that SEC championship game. Had he stayed in that one and they come back and won, I think he probably would have won the Heisman. That was the game that determined the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I remember when the game got announced against Oklahoma because of watching how the Heisman Trophy went down, that I really thought our defense would try to send a message for Tua that Tua should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. And I'm also a believer that Tua should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. I know he got banged up as we talked about in the SEC championship game, and it wasn't just that game. He had started getting banged up a little bit midway through, and so some of his stats just weren't as flashy as they were to start the year. but it was back-to-back years of Oklahoma quarterbacks winning the Heisman Trophy. Baker Mayfield had won it the year before. Kyler Murray won it the next year, and then if you remember the next year, Joe Burrow won it, but Jalen Hurts was also invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. And so similar to Hawaii's system, and when they had quarterbacks that were going to be considered for the Heisman Trophy, but never going to win it because it's Hawaii football. I really thought the Oklahoma quarterbacks were just being propped up because of the system that Lincoln Riley ran in a very weak Big 12 defensive conference and was able just to put up stats and wow people with the numbers. So I remember going in that game, I really thought the defense would play well early on, and we did. As you mentioned, we got up 28-0. I don't know if you can really say we took our foot off the gas. Obviously, the offense slowed down a little bit, but as you mentioned, credit to Kyler Murray. He kept playing and kept it, somewhat close, especially being down 28 to nothing. I know they got it down. The final score was 45-34, and there were multiple times where it was an 11-point game. And if they had gotten a stop and another score, then of course it really, really gets tight. But that was also, games that we were accustomed to under Nick Saban that it really felt like it was over before halftime because of how dominant the performance was early on and really putting that game away. Biggest thing from that game too, especially for this Alabama-Oklahoma series, no turnovers by Alabama that night.
Well, you're right. In that game, even though Oklahoma came back and made it interesting, there was never a time that I felt like, oh, I think Oklahoma can come back and pull this off. I never had that concern or level of concern from that standpoint. And I always felt like that if Alabama needed to, they would go ahead and extend it back to the 2 to 3 score game if need be. I think you're right. Not that they took their foot off the gas. It was just a case of, there was no need to be super aggressive. I don't know if they just were like, they weren't in a shell. And again, I do feel like that team had enough potential. They could have come out and done what they needed to do. Had they had some weird freak play that got it to a one score game. But you're right. We already know what Alabama needs to do now. Turnovers, stop it. Alabama has been cursed these last 2 games against Oklahoma. So obviously that is something that they have got to stop, protect the football. And look, don't help Oklahoma because honestly, Oklahoma needs Alabama's help, in my opinion, to win the game.
No, I completely agree. As we talked about after the Oklahoma game on our Eastern Illinois preview, in the 5 losses that Alabama has had against Oklahoma, they have cumulatively lost the turnover battle 16-3. And in 4 of those 5 games that Oklahoma has won, the Oklahoma defense has also gotten a defensive touchdown. So not only taking care of the ball, but making sure that a turnover is not immediately turned into points from the defensive side. One thing that we have shown, I feel like, with our defense is if they've got a long way to go, they're going to make you earn it. And typically that team's going to stall out around the 50-yard line. A lot of what happened in that first game this year in 2025. Oklahoma scored on the defensive touchdown, the interception, but all their other scores were short fields. I don't think they had a drive that was longer than 41 or 42 yards total. And of course, that benefited us too, as everybody talked about after the game, where we basically doubled them up in total yards. But of course, the 3 turnovers were just critical to Oklahoma's win. And if Alabama can find a way to limit those turnovers, if not just get rid of them, like you said, then that's going to be a huge factor in making an Oklahoma offense that has been struggling recently have to move the ball against Alabama instead of just setting up short fields for them.
Uh, I'll go back to what we kind of joked about when we talked about Oklahoma before. But if Yonsei Pierre or Deontay Lawson or Quay Russaw has 31 tackles, I like Alabama's chances.
Yeah.
I think they'll be okay, unless for some reason Alabama then comes back with 6 turnovers and they'll 6 of them lead to points. But if any one of the big defensive stars ends up with 31 tackles, I think we'll be just fine against Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I got to imagine with what happened last year being knocked out of the college football playoff by losing up in Norman, and again, all the chatter that goes around as far as is Kalen DeBoer coaching for his job. I think this team's kind of fed up with it as well. You saw it how they responded against Florida State. You've seen it how they've responded at other times. They're tired of all the noise. They're going to go out there, and I think they're going to prove something Friday night up in Norman against Oklahoma. It's very exciting to be back in the college football playoff. And of course, what's on deck too, if you win this game, an opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl to play what is currently, or what is the number 1 seed in the Indiana Hoosiers and the current Heisman Trophy winner in Fernanda Mendoza as well. So obviously a lot to play for. It's win or go home now. But very, very excited for this Alabama team. And again, really proud of these guys for how they've stuck together, continued to compete, and now have this opportunity to continue to compete for a national championship.
Well, I think the biggest thing is almost an extra week off to rest. We already know how battered and bruised. There's a lot of reports and chatter about certain injuries to certain players, and there is a lot of validity to all of that. I'm not going to go into details on what they truly are, but yes, this team needs some rest. Will they be 100% healthy? Still probably no. Answer's probably no, but they definitely should be more effective than they were against Georgia. And yes, it would be extremely nice to if they can beat Oklahoma to go back to the Rose Bowl on the 100-year anniversary of the first national championship in the Rose Bowl in 1925. So that would be fantastic.
It would be fantastic. And again, we hope that we get to be with you again, talking about Indiana, who Alabama has never played, but of course we'll be diving into a lot of Rose Bowl history if we get that opportunity. So we're not sure of what our schedule will be as of right now. I know whenever the season does come to a close, we will come together and kind of recap the season and see where the 2025 season really fits in Alabama football history. But for right now, we won't cross our fingers. We'll just feel confident that we will be back with you sometime before this year is up in 2025 and talking about Alabama playing Indiana in the Rose Bowl to kick off 2026. Got a lot of really good things going on at Crimson Crossover. Got basketball coverage that's constantly going out. Still got the M3 show as an additional football show for y'all to check out. We've still got some golf stuff, and Weekly Joe's going to be coming out here pretty soon as baseball season is going to be starting here in February to kick off 2026 as well. So before we shut it down, Michael, any closing thoughts?
No, I think just to wish all of the people who've been listening and following us all season Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Love to talk to you again. Hopefully, we'll be talking about Alabama playing Indiana, not in basketball, but in football.
Absolutely. And if you want to send us a Christmas present, subscribe to Crimson Crossover on YouTube and all of our different handles on Twitter and Apple and Spotify as well. So with that, we'll shut it down. But again, hope to be able to talk to you again, talking some more Alabama football this season as they make their march to the college football playoff. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
The Paul W. Bryant Museum is a captivating destination for sports enthusiasts and fans of the University of Alabama football program. Located in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the museum is dedicated to preserving the legacy of the legendary coach Paul Bear Bryant. The Paul W. Bryant Museum showcases a remarkable collection of memorabilia, including trophies, photographs, and artifacts that span Bryant's career and the rich history of Alabama football. Visitors can explore interactive exhibits and learn about the team's storied past, making the Paul W. Bryant Museum a must-visit for any football aficionado. Fans can also experience exhibits highlighting success of both the Alabama men's basketball and women's softball programs. Open Tuesday through Sunday. Plan your visit today and experience the rich tradition of Alabama athletics. Roll Tide.